Carl almost killed me as a soldier, but that's okay. That's what Carl does. So every soldier goes through this. When you get to a unit, you don't get to pick who's around you, but for the most part, there's always going to be a soldier named Carl. And this can be a little confusing because I'm not saying there's a soldier named Carl, you just get the title of a Carl. And essentially, a Carl is somebody who does clumsy things, they mess things up, but they will do anything you ask of them. And so make no mistake, the Carl in this story, I love him, he was in my squad, he's one of my brothers, but he's a Carl. Now, whenever you go to train as a soldier, you already know what you're going to get into. And when you start to deal with live ammunition, things can get dangerous. So we were doing something called team live fires. And it's exactly what you think it is. It's when you work as a team element and you bound together, you cover each other's back, you fire at targets, and then when you're done, you go to pick up the brass and ammunition. And Carl, of course, is on my team. Everything actually goes smoothly. The part where he almost kills myself and the rest of my squad, it's not during the live fire itself. You see, one of the most annoying parts about doing a live fire is not the actual training itself, it's after the fact. You have to do what's called picking up your brass and reaching your brass count. And I've talked about brass counts before. It's essentially you have to try getting the same exact amount of ammunition you shot. Pick it up out of the grass, pick it up in between some rocks. However you do it, get your brass count. Now, when you do these live fire exercises, you're not just wandering around and flanking around your enemy opponent. You have to stay within a restricted area. It's also known as stay in your lane. Because on the outside of your lane, there are things called your UXOs, unexploded ordnances. So typically that's an area where nobody would ever step into, and it's clearly marked. Also, the grass is taller. You just know do not walk in there. Except Carl had some different ideas. So as we are gathering up the brass and we're making sure we have everything, all of a sudden we're like, what is Carl doing? And he has something really big in his hand. And look, it's not uncommon for some soldiers to put brass in their patrol cap or put it in their Kevlars and start walking towards the drop-off point. But as Carl walks closer and closer, we're starting to realize what's in his hand. And so all of a sudden, Carl picks up his hand and he's holding a UXO. More specifically, an unexploded mortar round. And you know, we're kind of brand new privates at this point. We had just gotten to the 101st Airborne a couple months ago. But you should have a proper understanding of you probably shouldn't pick up a UXO. So Carl proceeds to look at my squad leader and say, "Hey Sergeant, I found this. Are we supposed to drop this off as well?" My squad leader looks at him and says, "You better drop that the F now." And Carl, being Carl, just looks at him with that blank face and walks back to the UXO zone and literally puts it exactly where he found it. Carl then walks back to the drop-off zone and my squad leader lays into him and says, "What were you thinking? Start doing push-ups. I don't understand why you thought picking up a mortar round was part of the brass pickup." Now, the way I see it, I think Carl deserves an award. He went above and beyond what the US government would want. But if you think this is the end of the Carl saga, we are just getting started.